we're going to talk about something called frequency tables and introduce the idea of a mode. Some of these you've probably seen before, but again. And so this is labeled in your OneNote as Term 2, Week 2, Lessons 2 and 3. I don't know why it's 2 and 3 because it's all one lesson, but there you go. All right, so let's get started. So just going to go straight to the book on your OneNote. Oops, sorry, or I would if I hadn't changed it. Here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about recording data in tally and frequency tables and then being able to find the mode of a set of data. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is just talk about what a tally is and what frequency means. Okay? And you've done a tally before. A tally is simply that when you use a little mark to represent how many that happens, right? And then if you get 5, you put a little line across to group them into 5s. So this particular tally indicates that I have 7 items, right? 1 group of 5 and then 2 more. You've done a tally before. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I was going to do a tally of 12, that would mean how many groups of 5?
2.
2 groups of 5 and then 2 extra marks, right? Okay?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, telling how many numbers there are is called finding the frequency. So for example, for this particular one, we'll just take away items. The frequency here is 7. The frequency here is 12. So frequency just literally means how many times something happens or occurs. Okay? And this is usually used for categorical data. So let's say that I'm going to ask all of you, how many of you have a cat? So we would title it, have a cat, okay? So let's say that I was just going through and I was asking, and everybody who said they had a cat, I was making marks, right? Hey, there are 20 people in the class, so I'm going to go with about that many. So how many people there have a cat?
13.
13.
13.
Okay. How easy is that? All right. So, and we often do this when we're talking about categorical data, because then we can make comparisons of the data. So let's just back at some of these. So look at this example. For example, here students in Alan's class are asked to name their favorite subject. Of course, we know it's going to end up being mathematics, right? Or not.
That is not correct.
Not correct. Well, it isn't correct in the table either. So you can choose between art, music, math, English, science, etc. So each person gets to name their own favorite. Okay? So then we put all of that information in a table. The favorite subject. So you could choose math, art, science, music, or English. And here is the tally of the number of people who chose each one. So four people chose math, so that's 4 lines. And then you write out the number that represented by the lines. So we end up with 4, 3, 2, 6, and 1. Okay? So everybody happy with that? Notice also down here we did a total, and this total is going to be very important to you. So what I want to do is just talk about I didn't mean to change that. I'm going to write here, is talk about the pieces of this, all right? Here we get a title. You must have a title. not an option. Here is the tally. I don't need to define tally. Just make a mark for each one as you answer the question. This is the frequency. Again, that's just the number that represented by the tally marks. So you just count them up. And here, this one is also not optional. You must have a total. If you don't have a total, then you're not going to be able to do the rest of the work. Okay? Because what we're going to do is we're going to change these frequencies to a percent. All right? Now, let's just get rid of all of those marks. All right. To write a frequency as a percent. So these are the steps for writing it out. First, find the frequency. Right? So you first have to find the frequency by making the tally marks and then counting them up. Second, after you find the frequency, you must find the total. And that's the total of all the categories. Okay, make sure you're very careful there, because if you get the number wrong, if you add wrong, then it's going to throw all of your numbers off. Okay? Put the frequency over the total. Okay? So in other words, we're going to make a fraction from it. Your favorites. Then we're going to simply multiply that fraction by 100%. Remember back when we did the number section, you simply multiply by 100% to turn something into a percent. Okay? And so just as an example to make you remember, say we have 4 out of 5 times 100%. Remember, we take this number divided by that number. Remember the steps? So it's 100 divided by 5 equals 20. And then multiply that times the top times the 4 gives me 80. And of course, we have to make sure we have the percent symbol. So 4 out of 5 becomes 80%. Okay. Remember that process from our number section?
Yes.
I hope so. Good, because that's one of the reasons why we go through number first, because it takes you through all these different processes. Okay? So, you need to find the frequency, the total of all categories, make a fraction out of it, and then multiply that fraction by what?
100%.
100%. Excellent. Okay? Good job, guys. So, that's what they've done here. For example, mathematics is the favorite subject for 4 out of the 16 students. So 4 out of 16 times 100% equals 25% of the students. Okay? When you're doing the multiplication, can anybody tell me how I could have made this multiplication easier with the 4 out of 16?
1/4.
Exactly. If I had simplified it to 1/4, that would have made the multiplication a lot easier. Do you agree? Because 100 divided by 4 is 25 times 1 is 25%.
Mr. Self, you're muted.
Uh-oh.
Keeps glitching in.
Why are you muting?
Oh,
Guys, stop muting people.
someone's
No, it's
muted
a
me.
glitch.
Okay. Am I unmuted? No.
Mr.
No.
Self, you're muted.
There we go. Stop doing that, brats.
It's a glitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been happening in all the classes.
Okay.
Not my class.
Well, it's
What?
you guys can do it.
Trolling.
I have to watch the video. There's a way I can stop it, but anyway. Yeah, it's something that y'all do that makes my
You're muted again.
stop it.
If someone's
Okay,
muted,
there we go.
that-
So
like-
don't touch anything. Okay, all right. Now, all right. Let's go back to the OneNote. Sorry. Okay. Now, there is one other. So now we know how to find a percent. We know how to make a tally. We know that frequency just means the number when you add up the tally, and then you have to have a total. Then you can create a fraction for each section, and then you can find the percentage. The last thing that we're going to talk about is something called mode. Now, this is a really old-fashioned word. You don't use it anymore, but you might have heard of apple pie a la mode. Have you ever heard of a la mode?
Nope.
Nope.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know what it
some of you
looks
might.
like.
A la mode means you put ice cream on it.
Oh.
And it was just a fashionable, and it's just French for in the fashion. So it was really popular, something that's popular. Okay? So
Mr.
mode.
Self, you're muted again.
You're muted. Can we please stop muting people?
Mr.
Like,
Self, you're still
you know.
muted.
Okay, guys,
a glitch.
just don't push
not
any
a glitch.
buttons, please. Stop pushing buttons. No buttons. You're listening to me. You shouldn't be pushing any buttons. You shouldn't need to. Okay. All right. So, the mode is simply means something that's fashionable or popular. So, if it's popular, that means it happens a lot, right? So, the mode is simply the number or
Hello.
or frequency.
You're muted again, Mr. Self.
Mr. South, you're still muted. Guys, stop muting people.
Okay, if it mutes, don't worry about it. I'm doing the recording. It'll still be on the recording, and you can hear me and you can read the notes. And I'll figure out how to make it stop. But just stop doing it, guys. Y'all are doing it by pushing buttons, and so just knock it off, okay? All right. So the mode is the number or frequency that occurs most often. Okay? So the time you see the mode, that just means the number that occurs most often. And there are a couple of cases that can happen. You can have one mode. You can have two or more modes. That just means that the same number occurs the same time. So let's say that math and history both got 4 marks. Then that's 2 of them that got the most. Or you can have no mode, meaning that they all occur exactly the same number of times. Okay? So let's just go back to the example that we were looking at and see the modes for those particular examples, okay? Okay. Sorry. All right, so if you look at this frequency table, 4, 3, 2, and 6, 6 is the biggest number on that list, yeah? Okay? So the mode for this set of data is 6. And which topic does that represent?
Music.
Music. There you go. Okay? So music was the most frequent one so that makes it the mode. So let's look at this other example. So the data below records how students in a class travel to school on a particular day. They either walk, bicycle, bus, car, or train. And they've made it easier for you by making each one a different color. But they've also completed the table here. So if you look at the table for all of these, which number occurs most frequently? 11, which stands for the car. So the mode is the car, or the mode is 11, which is the number for car. So the mode is car. Okay? And then they also did all of the percentages for them. Remember this funny little squiggly equal symbol? What does that mean that they've done?
They've rounded it.
They've rounded it, exactly. So if it comes out to be if you want a percent, if you want a whole percent, they've rounded those, and that's the symbol for about. So that just tells you that they rounded them. So 5 of the 35 students walked, which was about 14%. Okay? Now, what if I had 11 for car and 11 for walk? That would mean I have not just one mode, but what?
2.
2, exactly. Good.
2.
Okay. What if every single number had been 3 all the way down?
It'll be no mode.
Then there's really no mode, right? Okay. So there's no number that occurs more frequently than any other number. Or you could say that they're all the mode because 3 occurred most frequently, right? So we typically say no mode, or you could also say that they're all the mode if they occur all the time, the same amount of time. Okay? All right. So let's recap a little bit. So when we're measuring categorical data, it's often good to get the frequency, or how many times it occurred. To get that, first you must title it. If you don't have a title, then the data is meaningless. Okay? So when you're making this frequency table here, you have to have a title with each piece of information. Then you do a tally. Then you count up those to get the frequency. What else is the other thing that you must have? You must have a total. Excellent. Good. And then to find the frequency for each one, we can simply put the number over the total and multiply that by 100% to change it into a percent. Okay. And then finally, we talked about the mode. The mode is the frequency that occurs the most if there is one. And can you have more than one mode?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go. You can't have more than one. All right. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
You'll be so happy to know that that's our lesson. Now here are you right after the lesson, term 2, week 2, lesson 2 and 3. You'll see the task 1 is tally and frequency. That's your task to work on. And then you also have the answers. Remember that I want you to check your answers as you go. Don't do the whole assignment and then come back and check your answers. Check your answers as you go so that you know that you're doing it correctly. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
So hold on a minute.
Thank you.
We still have to call the roll. So don't ditch me yet.